Men, at their core, have a deep and unshakable desire that is often misunderstood, overlooked, or simply left unspoken. This desire is not driven by vanity, nor is it rooted in a need for control or dominance. It is something far more fundamental, something that is wired into the very fabric of their being. Men crave recognition, not just any recognition, but a specific kind. One that validates their efforts, their struggles, and their purpose. It is an acknowledgement that speaks directly to their identity, their role in society, and their sense of self-worth. From a young age, boys are conditioned to strive, to push forward, to achieve. They are taught to work hard, to be strong, to be providers, to be protectors. They grow up hearing messages about what it means to be a man. Messages that emphasize resilience, responsibility, and success. But within these lessons, there is something that is rarely, if ever, discussed. It is the simple truth that men, no matter how strong they appear on the outside, deeply desire to be recognized for their efforts. They want to hear that what they do matters, that who they are is valued, that their sacrifices, their struggles, and their relentless drive are not in vain. Yet, the world often forgets this. Society assumes that because men are strong, because they keep moving forward, because they do not often express vulnerability, they do not need to hear words of affirmation. This assumption is not just wrong, it is damaging. It creates a world where men feel unseen, unappreciated, and emotionally isolated. They continue to provide, to work, to push themselves to their limits, all while receiving little to no acknowledgement. And the most ironic part? The words they long to hear the most are often the ones they are least likely to receive. Consider this: a man who works long hours to support his family, who shoulders the burden of financial stability, who ensures that his loved ones are safe and secure. What does he truly want at the end of the day? It is not just a paycheck. It is not just success in his career. It is not even the physical comforts that his hard work provides. What he wants more than anything is to be recognized for what he does. He wants someone to look at him and say, "I see you. I see what you do for us. And it matters." But these words rarely come. Instead, his efforts are often taken for granted, not out of malice, but out of habit. The world has conditioned people to expect men to be strong, to be capable, to perform without the need for praise or validation. And so, they continue on, pushing through exhaustion, stress, and pressure, without ever hearing the one thing that would make all the difference. Think about the way society treats achievements. When a woman accomplishes something great, she is often met with admiration, encouragement, and vocal appreciation. And rightfully so, everyone deserves to be recognized for their hard work. But when a man achieves something, it is often seen as an expectation rather than an accomplishment. He is simply doing what he is supposed to do. He is fulfilling his role. There is no need for acknowledgement because, in the eyes of many, he is just meeting the bare minimum. But here's the truth. Men do not just want recognition, they need it. It is fuel for their ambition, for their drive, for their ability to keep going even when the weight of the world is on their shoulders. When a man hears that he is valued, it changes everything. He walks differently. He speaks with more confidence. He approaches challenges with renewed energy. He becomes stronger, not because he was weak before, but because he now has something deeper to stand on. Validation. There is something profoundly powerful about knowing that your efforts are seen, that your sacrifices are appreciated, that your presence makes a difference. And yet, most men go their entire lives without ever hearing this from the people they love the most. They may hear it in a professional setting, from a boss or a colleague who acknowledges their hard work. But at home, in their relationships, in their personal lives? Silence. This silence is not intentional, it is not malicious, but it is damaging nonetheless. It creates an emotional gap, one that grows wider with time. A man who never hears that he is valued begins to internalize the belief that he is not. He starts to feel like what he does is never enough, that no matter how much he provides, how hard he works, how much he sacrifices, it will always go unnoticed. And when this belief takes root, it affects everything: his confidence, his motivation, his sense of purpose. This is why a simple statement, spoken with sincerity, can be life-changing. A few words, "I see what you do, and I appreciate you," can transform the way a man views himself and his role in the world. It can lift him up when he is on the verge of exhaustion. It can remind him why he pushes so hard, why he endures, why he continues to give even when he feels like he has nothing left. The tragedy is that most men will never hear these words, not because they are undeserving, not because their efforts do not warrant recognition, but because the people around them have never been taught the importance of saying them. Society assumes that men do not need affirmation, that they are built to withstand the pressures of life without emotional support. But this assumption is a lie. Men are human. They may not always show their emotions in the same way, they may not openly express their need for validation, but that need is there, buried beneath the surface. And when it is fulfilled, when a man is told that he is valued, something shifts within him. His confidence grows, his energy is renewed, he becomes the best version of himself. Not because he was waiting for permission, but because he now has the encouragement to step fully into his potential. Yet, despite this deep desire, most women never say these words, not because they do not feel them, but because they assume that actions speak louder than words. They believe that their presence, their support, their own sacrifices are enough to communicate appreciation. But while actions matter, words have a power that cannot be replaced. A man may know he is loved, but until he hears it, until he feels the weight of those words, something will always be missing. And so the cycle continues. Men strive, men push forward, men sacrifice, all while craving something they rarely receive. They long to hear it, they need to hear it, but only 1% of women ever say it. Men operate in a world that constantly demands more from them. They are expected to perform, to produce, to protect, to provide. Whether in their careers, their relationships, or their personal endeavors, they are conditioned to keep moving forward, to be the strong foundation upon which others can rely. But beneath the surface of their quiet resilience and unwavering commitment lies a fundamental truth. Men thrive on recognition. It is not simply about praise or flattery. It is about being seen, truly seen, for the weight they carry and the efforts they put forth every single day. Recognition is not just about saying good job or offering shallow compliments. It is about acknowledging the sacrifices that often go unnoticed. A man who works long hours, who takes on responsibilities without complaint, who ensures that the people around him are cared for, does not do so because it is easy. He does it because he feels it is his duty. But duty without acknowledgement can be draining. It can leave a man feeling as though his contributions are invisible, as though no matter how much he gives, it is never truly appreciated. The reality is, most men do not hear the words they need to hear. They may receive respect in the workplace. They may get occasional appreciation for their skills or intelligence, but the kind of recognition that fuels them on a deeper level, the kind that makes them feel valued as men, is incredibly rare. They do not ask for it because they have been taught not to. They do not show that they need it because vulnerability is often seen as weakness. But the truth remains, men crave recognition, in a way that is rarely discussed. Consider the way a man carries himself when he knows he is valued. There is a difference in his energy, in his posture, in his ability to handle challenges. A man who feels seen is a man who stands taller, speaks with more confidence, and moves through life with a stronger sense of purpose. When he is told that his efforts matter, that what he does makes a difference, he is no longer just working to meet expectations, he is working from a place of fulfillment. He is no longer just surviving under the weight of responsibility, he is thriving in the knowledge that what he brings to the table is not only needed, but appreciated. On the other hand, a man who never hears words of recognition will, over time, begin to feel like nothing he does is enough. He may continue to work hard, to provide, to show up in all the ways he is expected to, but something inside him will begin to fade. He will push forward because that is what he has been conditioned to do, but he will do so with a quiet sense of emptiness. He may not voice it, he may not even fully understand it himself, but the lack of recognition will wear on him. It will drain his energy, dull his motivation, and leave him feeling like he is constantly running on empty. And the irony? Many of the people in his life assume he does not need recognition. They assume that because he is strong, because he is capable, because he never complains, he must not require the same words of affirmation that others do. But nothing could be further from the truth. The strongest men, the most driven men, the ones who seem to have it all together, they need it the most because they are the ones carrying the heaviest burdens. They are the ones who rarely stop to ask for appreciation, even when they are desperate for it. The power of recognition is transformative. A man who is acknowledged does not become complacent. He becomes more. He works harder, not because he has to, but because he wants to. He gives more, not because it is expected, but because he feels energized by the understanding that his efforts are not taken for granted. Recognition is not about stroking egos or feeding arrogance. It is about fueling a man's natural drive to lead, to protect, to create. When a man is told that he is doing well, that his actions matter, that his presence makes a difference, he rises to the occasion. He steps into his highest potential because he knows that what he does is meaningful. But when recognition is absent, when a man gives and gives but never hears that what he does is enough, the opposite happens. He begins to withdraw. He starts to wonder why he continues to push so hard when no one seems to notice. He may not stop altogether. Most men will keep going simply because they feel they must. But his spirit is no longer in it. The passion fades. The enthusiasm dulls. He becomes less engaged not because he wants to, but because the weight of being unacknowledged has taken its toll. This is why the smallest words can have the biggest impact. A simple, "I appreciate you," said with sincerity, can revive a man who's been running on empty. A genuine, "I see how hard you're working and it means a lot," can restore his motivation in ways that nothing else can. It does not take grand gestures or extravagant praise, just a few honest words spoken at the right time. Many women assume that actions speak louder than words. They believe that their support, their presence, their own sacrifices are enough to show a man that he is valued. But while actions matter, words carry a power that cannot be replaced. A man may know, logically, that he is appreciated. He may see it in the way his family relies on him, in the way his partner stays by his side, in the way his friends trust him, But until he hears it, until he feels the weight of those words spoken directly to him, something will always be missing. The difference between an average relationship and a deeply fulfilling one is often as simple as whether or not a man feels recognized. The difference between a man who simply works to survive and a man who works with passion and purpose is often whether or not he feels seen. Recognition is not just about making a man feel good. It is about unlocking the full potential of who he is. It is about fueling his drive, strengthening his confidence, and giving him the energy to keep pushing forward no matter what obstacles stand in his way. Men are rarely told how much they are appreciated, how much their efforts matter, how much they bring to the lives of those around them. And yet, those few words, spoken with sincerity, given without expectation, have the power to change everything. Most women do not intentionally withhold words of appreciation from the men in their lives. They do not wake up and decide, "I will not recognize his efforts today." Instead, it is often an unconscious oversight, a result of deeply ingrained societal conditioning that has shaped the way men and women interact. The reality is that many women assume men already know they are valued. They believe that actions speak louder than words, that their presence, support, and care are sufficient to communicate appreciation. But while actions certainly hold weight, they cannot replace the power of spoken recognition. A man may logically understand that he is valued, but unless he hears it, unless the words are deliberately spoken, he may never truly feel it. From childhood, boys are taught that their worth is tied to their ability to perform. They are expected to work hard, to be resilient, to provide, to protect. And as they grow older, they begin to internalize the belief that doing their duty is enough. That as long as they fulfill their responsibilities, they should not need praise or validation. Meanwhile, girls are more openly encouraged to express their emotions, to seek affirmation, to expect recognition for their achievements. As a result, by the time men and women enter relationships, whether romantic, familial, or professional, a silent imbalance has already been established. Women naturally receive more verbal affirmation, while men are expected to simply know they are appreciated. But this assumption is flawed. No human being, no matter how strong or self-sufficient, is immune to the need for acknowledgement. Men, just like women, have an emotional core that craves validation. They want to be seen, to be valued, to know that their sacrifices are not going unnoticed. And yet, because they have been taught not to ask for this recognition, they often suffer in silence, pushing forward with an invisible weight on their shoulders. One of the biggest reasons women do not verbalize their appreciation is the belief that too much praise might lead to complacency. Some fear that if they openly acknowledge a man's efforts, whether in a relationship, in a career, or within a family, he will stop striving, that he will become comfortable and put in less effort. This is a common misunderstanding. The truth is, recognition does not create laziness. It creates momentum. When a man hears that his hard work is appreciated, that his presence is valuable, that his actions make a difference, he does not slow down, he accelerates. He becomes even more driven, more committed, more willing to give. A man who feels appreciated is not one who rests on his achievements, but one who is energized to achieve more. This is evident in every area of life. In the workplace, employees who feel recognized and valued are more productive, more engaged, and more willing to go above and beyond. The same principle applies in relationships. A man who feels deeply appreciated by his partner is far more likely to be affectionate, attentive, and emotionally present. But when recognition is absent, when he feels like his efforts are unnoticed or simply expected, something shifts within him. His motivation dwindles. His enthusiasm fades. He begins to question why he continues to push so hard when nothing he does seems to be enough. The tragedy is that many women genuinely feel appreciation for the men in their lives, but they assume that their feelings are understood without needing to be spoken. They assume that because their partner, father, brother, or friend knows they are loved, there is no need to explicitly say, "I see what you do. I appreciate you." But this assumption leaves a gap, a void that can quietly erode a man's sense of worth. He may never voice it because he has been taught not to, but deep down, the absence of recognition takes its toll. It is also important to understand that men and women often express and interpret love differently. Women, on average, place a higher value on emotional connection, verbal communication, and gestures of affection. They tend to give love in the way they most naturally receive it, through nurturing actions, shared experiences, and emotional depth. Men, however, are often more action-oriented in how they show love. They express their commitment through acts of service, provision, protection, and problem-solving. Because of this fundamental difference, a woman may feel that her actions, her presence, her loyalty, her care are clear indicators of her appreciation. But for a man who operates in a world where words are rarely spoken, the absence of verbal affirmation can leave him feeling unnoticed. This is why only a small percentage of women actually say the words men long to hear. It is not because they do not care, but because they do not realize how much it matters. They assume that a man who is confident, successful, and seemingly strong does not need to be told that he is doing a good job. They assume that he knows. But he does not. No matter how strong a man is, no matter how confident he appears on the outside, he still needs to hear that he is appreciated. And this need is not limited to romantic relationships. A son who grows up without ever hearing his father say, "I'm proud of you," will carry that unspoken void into adulthood. A hard-working man who provides for his family but never hears a simple thank you will start to feel like nothing he does is enough. A leader who sacrifices for his team but never receives acknowledgement will eventually burn out. This is not weakness. It is human nature. The smallest words can have the greatest impact. Just as a woman thrives when she feels cherished and emotionally connected, a man thrives when he feels valued and recognized. And yet, most women never say these words, not because they do not believe them, but because they assume he already knows. There is a fundamental shift that happens when a man hears the words he has silently craved. He stands taller. His energy changes. His confidence grows. He becomes more engaged, more giving, more present. The dynamic of the relationship shifts, not because the woman has done anything drastic, but because she has tapped into something so profoundly simple, yet incredibly powerful. The question is not whether men need recognition. The question is why so few women give it. The impact of unspoken words is far greater than most realize. What is unacknowledged slowly loses its meaning. What is never recognized begins to fade into the background. And the men who give so much, who push forward despite exhaustion, who carry the weight of responsibility without complaint, continue to do so in silence, waiting for words that may never come. Men, by their very nature, are driven by a deep and often unspoken need to feel respected, valued, and admired. It is not just about being appreciated. It is about knowing that their presence, their efforts, and their sacrifices mean something to the people they care about. This desire is not rooted in ego or vanity, but in something far more fundamental: the need to know they matter. Yet despite this being such an integral part of the male psyche, very few women express admiration in a way that truly resonates with men. Admiration is not the same as general appreciation. It goes deeper than simply thanking a man for what he does. It is about acknowledging who he is, his strength, his character, his drive, his ability to navigate the pressures of life. It is about recognizing his essence, not just his actions. And while women often receive admiration in the form of compliments about their beauty, their kindness, or their emotional depth, men rarely experience this kind of validation. Society assumes that men do not need to hear it, that they should simply know they are doing well. But no one is immune to the power of admiration. Think about the way a man transforms when he feels admired. His energy shifts, his confidence grows. He stands taller, speaks with more conviction, and moves through life with a renewed sense of purpose. He does not just exist, he thrives. This is because admiration fuels a man in a way that few things can. When a man knows that the people he loves admire him, not just for what he provides, but for who he is, he becomes even more dedicated, more driven, more willing to step into his full potential. But when admiration is absent, something in him begins to fade. He may still fulfill his duties, still work hard, still push forward, but the fire inside him starts to dim. He may not even realize it at first, but over time, the lack of recognition chips away at his motivation. He begins to feel as though no matter what he does, it is never enough. He may stop putting in as much effort, not because he does not care, but because he feels invisible. This is why so many men silently withdraw from their relationships, their ambitions, and even their own sense of self-worth. It is not because they no longer want to give, but because they feel that their efforts no longer matter. They have been conditioned to believe that they should not need admiration, that seeking validation is a sign of weakness. But the truth is, admiration is not a luxury for men. It is a necessity. Women often do not realize how much their words of admiration mean to a man. They assume that because he is strong, because he is capable, because he does not often express vulnerability, he does not need to hear it. They assume that their love is enough, that their actions communicate all that needs to be said. But love and admiration are not the same thing. Love is deep, unconditional, and ever-present. But admiration is active. It is spoken. It is intentional. And it has the power to transform the way a man sees himself. A woman's admiration is one of the most powerful forces in a man's life. It has the ability to build him up or break him down. A man who feels admired will go to great lengths to protect, provide, and support the people who see him that way. He will give everything when he knows that his presence, his strength, and his actions are valued. But when he does not feel admired, when he begins to believe that no one truly sees the depth of his effort, he starts to withdraw, physically, emotionally, mentally. And the tragic part? Most women do admire the men in their lives. They see their dedication, their resilience, their ability to handle pressure, their unwavering sense of responsibility. But they do not say it. They assume he already knows. They assume that because he keeps going, because he does not complain, because he does not ask for praise, he does not need it. But the truth is, he does. There is something deeply transformative about hearing the words, "I admire you." Not, "I love you." Not, "I appreciate you." But, "I admire you." Those words tap into a part of a man that nothing else does. They remind him that his strength is recognized, that his struggles are seen, that his sacrifices are valued. They give him fuel, energy, and a renewed sense of purpose. The reason only 1% of women ever say these words is because they have never been taught their power. They have been told to show love, to offer support, to be there in times of need. But they have not been told that a man thrives when he knows he is admired. They have not been taught that admiration is not about flattery or empty compliments, but about seeing a man for who he truly is and telling him that he is worthy. A man does not need to be perfect to be admired. He does not need to have everything figured out. He does not need to be the strongest, the richest, the most successful. What he needs is to know that his efforts, his character, and his presence are respected, that the people around him see him, not just for what he does, but for who he is. And when he hears this, when he truly feels it, everything changes. His confidence grows. His ambition reignites. His sense of purpose sharpens. He becomes more engaged, more giving, more willing to go to great lengths for the people who recognize his worth. But if he never hears it, if he never feels it, he may still push forward, still strive, still do what is expected of him. But deep down, he will wonder if it even matters. And that quiet doubt, that unspoken question, is what slowly drains the very fire that once made him unstoppable.